Everyone, it's 6 o'clock on the dot, so I will call this meeting to order. If you guys can all just please silent your cell phones as we begin this meeting. We'll first start with the invocation. So Pastor David Butler, please join us from Faith Assembly.
Would you pray with me, please? Our gracious and glorious Father, in obedience to your word, we thank you today that we can come together on behalf of our city, our state, and our nation in prayer. We ask, Lord God, that you would watch over each one, guide us in the affairs of a peaceful city. Father, we pray for the affairs of this world. We pray, Lord, that your hand would be shown because you are mighty, O God. We thank you that you are the Lord of our city. We lift you up. We thank you for our civic leaders here tonight, our city leaders, Lord, our mayor. We ask that you would bless each one and give us wisdom, and our council people. We thank you in Jesus' name. And now I speak the blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God give you peace and protect you. Amen.
Thank you, David. Councilwoman Aber, with the pledge.
Please join me. For your heart, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, someone didn't silence their cell phone. All right. So at this time, I will accept an approval of the agenda, or if there's any modifications.
Second.
Motion is second. Seeing no further, call the vote. Kevin, just confirm. All right, ayes have it, so moved unanimously. All right, so we'll start tonight with our 1A ADA transition plan presentation. Michael, is that you?
That is me, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening you have before you for consideration and possible adoption the City of Destin's Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan for Pedestrian Facilities. This plan tonight represents the culmination of a multi-year effort, both by the City of Destin as well as our consultant Baskerville Donovan, to improve and ensure accessibility to as well as addressing obstacles within the city's walking paths. Our transition plan aligns with federal standards and aims to benefit the public by ensuring compliance with adopted accessibility guidelines. Within its pages, not only does it identify deficiencies and barriers to accessibility, but also provides a roadmap for implementation to achieve and maintain a higher level of inclusivity and compliance with federal requirements. This transition plan was executed in two phases. Phase 1 being comprised of a citywide pedestrian infrastructure survey and evaluation of our public walking infrastructure, and Phase 2 taking the data collected as part of Phase 1 and providing us with three major deliverables: an inventory and analysis of identified deficiencies and hindrances to access, a three-tiered prioritization of needed repairs, and lastly, a high-level cost analysis to guide the work of the Public Works Department and the city's future capital improvement planning efforts. The City of Destin's administration...
Michael,
I'm sorry?
Can you stop for just a second?
Okay.
He's going to have to get everybody's Wi-Fi back up. I don't know what we did.
Okay. Wow, that was, okay. Okay, all right. Okay, the city's administration is dedicated to providing accessible pedestrian infrastructure within the City of Destin, within our neighborhoods, and to destinations like our array of parks and public facilities. By following this plan, the community at large will benefit by finding improved and compliant accesses along major travel routes and our local roads, to our government buildings, to transit stops, and to our beaches and parks, thereby fostering inclusivity again for all residents and visitors. The implementation of our plan's components will be revisited each year and will be brought before this body as part of each year's budget process. The approved FY24 budget includes funding for both the renewal and replacement of roadways, as well as for the repair of sidewalks, curb ramps, etc. Please know that city staff and our continuing services provider have already begun the process of repairing sidewalks and installing and replacing ADA mats based on the findings of this plan, and will continue to do so during FY24 and for years to come. This plan was presented to council a couple of months ago, and at that time it was requested that the Public Works and Public Safety Committee review and comment on the plan. And I'm happy to report that the Public Works and Public Safety Committee has reviewed the plan, supports the work that went into its development, and recommends to council that it be adopted. This evening we are joined by Baskerville Donovan, namely our project manager Michael Langston, as well as Jason Frick, who served as the lead engineer for this project. They are both available this evening via Teams if you all have any questions. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Michael. And so with that, are you looking for any motion to adopt this completely at this point?
Yes, sir, there is a recommended motion.
Awesome. So at this time, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the city council adopt the ADA transition plan for pedestrian facilities as provided.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Seeing no further discussion, calling the vote. I'll get it after with you. And then Kevin, just confirm. All right, ayes have it unanimously. All right, moving right along. Public comments at this time. We'll start with my right and move left. Come on up. Yes, sir. Name, address, and just make sure the red light is on. You just hit that button. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Jeff Cross. I live at 3871 Indian Trail, Unit 1C, but I'm primarily here today to discuss the properties that I own at 4000 Gulf Terrace Drive. For the last 3 years, I've been trying to get resolution and some action to address the homeless encampment, but primarily the trash that's there. And I was formerly the president of the association there. As that role, I kind of took this on. I still haven't got any resolution or action to basically take care of the issue. I started as president to work directly with the owner of the property that's directly to the east of the west side boundary of Gulf Terrace, right behind the old Chick-fil-A. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. And then I started working with Ashley Bailey at the Sheriff's Department, got the Sheriff's Department involved in it. They are very good about going out there when you request them. There's homeless people living out there. They go run them off, but never has the trash been addressed. I guess a couple years ago, I started going to the city code enforcement. They do whatever they do. I'm not sure what it is, but it's very ineffective because there's a trash dump next to the property I own in the city of Destin. And it doesn't make me very happy. And again, it keeps accumulating. My understanding, there's chairs back there, there's materials that the homeless keep coming back to, you know, time after time. They build their encampment back, it doesn't go away. But the trash, my solution to this is whatever the code enforcement process is, again, it's very ineffective, okay? This is the process I suggest to the city of Destin, okay? One, they give the owners 30 days to clean up the trash after they run the homeless out or whatever, okay? After that 30 days expires, they hire contractors or city employees, whatever, I don't care. Somebody needs to go in and clean it up, okay? Give the owner 30 days to pay the bill that the city incurs, whether it's our employees or contractors to clean it up. That will mitigate the homeless coming back to that place, okay? If they don't pay that invoice after 30 days, you put a lien on their property, okay? I mean, nobody wants a lien on their property. I think that will be more effective than whatever process is in place now. So I think that's it. I appreciate you guys' time. Hopefully you will take some of this seriously and act on it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cross.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
sir, Mr.
Yes.
Cross,
Yes,
I haven't heard about any situations yet, but I know we have a process for that. And if it hasn't been to code enforcement, Lance, can we get code to check in on it? And then there's a process where they don't do it, then all the things that you just suggested, we have a magistrate process, there's all these things that can happen just as you spelled out. So
Right.
I think the first thing is, not saying the first, but
Right.
2 years ago, maybe, I can't tell you what happened, but
Okay.
we'll check into it now.
well, I
if we
did
can,
talk
Lance.
to Troy, I believe is his name, the new
Okay.
code enforcement director.
Gotcha.
He explained, you know, that he's hiring 5 more people and he's going to be working on it. But again, at least 2 years ago, I addressed this with code enforcement.
Well, thanks for bringing it
At
again.
least 2 years ago. So it's never been cleaned up. And again, the sheriff's department's been great. They go in and run the people out. You know, whenever I call them, you know, I've talked to Ashley Bailey with the sheriff's department. What else can we do?
Perfect. Well,
But
thanks for
the
bringing
fa-
it up tonight.
Yeah, but the fact that the trash never gets cleaned up is a significant issue that needs to be fixed.
We'll follow up with you soon.
Yep. I mean, and you don't even have to walk onto the property. You can drive down our fence line and see it, and there's yards and yards of just trash piled up.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, anyone else on my right side? Middle, yes. You're on. There you go.
Hi, I'm back. My name is Carol McIver. I live at 4718 Sea Star Vista. I am president of the Destiny East Homeowners Association. The reason I'm here tonight is to ask to be put on your appropriations list to fund a weir drain. Now, a weir drain is the permanent solution that we're all trying to find for the flooding control of the lake, Four Prong Lake. We are in the process of getting permits to be able to build that weir drain. We have 3 out of the 4 permits secured. Well, 2 we'll receive on November the 7th. The last one is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer permit, and we're filling out the final answers that they've asked for. This is going to be the solution to control the flooding. One of these was built down in Panama City with state funding. We're going to be addressing October 30th, the state representatives and legislators asking for state funding from them as well as you all. We want to be put on your list. This is a major problem. It's compiled by a lot of different reasons. Both city, county, and state have caused this lake to flood. So we're just asking, and we have a lot of people here tonight in support of this. They're not going to get up and speak, so you all don't have to listen to 1,000 different people asking for the exact same thing. But the president of Destiny West is here, and he would like to address you all as well. This is crucial to secure funding for this, and I think we're on your strategic planning list tonight. So I just wanted to let you all know that we're going to keep knocking on everybody's door. We're not stopping with the city. We're going to the state. We're going everywhere we can to try to secure, because this is going to be about a $2 million project. It's not something that's $100,000 and it'll go away. This is a major deal. And you all have copies of what the weir design looks like. So you can see this is a major, it will alleviate all our problems. So thank you for your time. I appreciate being considered.
Thank you so much. All right, anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Barnett.
Thank you. My name's Robert Barnett. I live at 77 Vista Bluffs in Destiny, which is now called Destiny West. We share the Four-Prong Lake with Destiny East. We share the expense of maintaining it. We have the same liability with flooding, dewatering, and I want to thank you all for approving the boring under Scenic Highway 98, which will, in the short term, alleviate, it won't stop flooding, but it'll help us to dewater the lake appropriately. But this weir is a big project, but it's a permanent solution. And as the president of the HOA, I represent the entire community, and thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you all for being here. All right, anyone else, middle right? Anyone far right, far left? All right, seeing no other, I'll close the public comments at this time, and we will move along to the consent agenda. Does anyone,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
all right, do I have a second? Second. Motion is second, seeing no further discussions. I'm going to call the vote. Thank you, guys. Oh, calling it now. All right, ayes have it unanimously, so moved. All right, going on to 4A, Mr. City Manager, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First up, we've got an update on the Crosstown connector. It's a two-part update, so I'll begin with Louis Senguzzi to kick it off.
It's outside. Good evening, council members and mayor. We have two reports to provide this evening. As you know, we have transitioned from the design phase of the Crosstown connector into what I would call the construction phase, although with a little twist to it. And so the first report you will have from the city engineer, it's regards to the permitting process that we have to go through. And then Jeff Koza will look at the options for funding the construction itself. So I'll turn this over to the city engineer to go over the land use aspects relating to the Crosstown connector.
Good evening. There is two maps that were provided. So council had previously directed staff to set the right-of-way at the back of curb along the road. But we did find out through the state that any properties that use TRIP funds to purchase them with have to be designated as right-of-way. So the first map kind of shows the yellow properties are the properties that were purchased with TRIP funds. And the second map is kind of trying to clarify and show where, if we do this, the right-of-way is set. And then the green on the second map is showing kind of the available park space after this is set this way. So in order for us to continue forward with the subdivision that's needed and the flume rezone, we need to get the right-of-way set so that we can move forward with the permitting process. So asking council to direct us on whether or not we move forward with the way we have it proposed with the TRIP fund properties kind of taken into account for right-of-way design or not, like just looking for some direction there.
Right. Councilman Destin, take it away.
And which properties did we use TRIP funds on? All of them, some of them?
So on the first map that was provided, there's yellow hatching, and the yellow hatched are the properties that were used to purchase with TRIP funds.
Yeah, but you're going to have to excuse me, this iPad is not working hardly at all.
Ryan, do you know what page on the iPad for the agenda?
I have the hard copy. You want me to bring the hard copy up?
Yep, I think I can see them here. There you go. Very good, I can see it. Okay, so the park property, which makes up the majority of our Crosstown, refresh my memory, that's not TRIP funds?
No, that's not. The RV park, no.
Yeah. And so these recent purchases, the ones to the south of Sandalwood Drive, of course, we can't use all of that for right-of-way, can we?
So per my understanding of the TRIP fund properties, they have to be designated for right-of-way and have to be used for transportation.
So we'll have a big square there that only a corner touches that's going to be designated as a right-of-way, is that correct?
That's correct.
That seems a little bit odd. Anyway, we can clarify that. And then we have two other parcels that barely touch the right-of-way to the north of Sandalwood. So we're going to go forward with an ordinance, something to designate those square islands out in the middle of the neighborhoods there as right-of-ways?
The subdivision process will set the right-of-way. It's kind of like a replat of the area. So this is the beginning of that process.
I'm not sure I think that's such a grand idea, but I guess we could discuss that with them to see if that's what they require.
Councilman Schmidt.
Okay, anybody else has questions, go ahead. We'll have big areas designated right-of-ways that couldn't possibly be right-of-ways.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that some of those, so the sandalwood pieces, they were townhomes. So we couldn't just buy the ones on the ends. We had to buy all of the units in the building.
I understand why
right?
we had to buy them.
That's why we ended up with what looks like different parcels.
My question is,
Yep.
how do we designate big square areas that really aren't barely attached to a road as right-of-ways, and what the future consequences of that may be? We will have the city attorney contact them to clarify how that rule applies to these islands that appear to be barely connected to the right-of-way at all.
But I think what staff is saying, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the subdivision process is done, the right-of-way will be in the actual path. It won't be those parcels anymore. They will subdivide it to show right-of-way versus parcels. So it will not be squares or rectangles. Correct, Ryan?
So on the second sheet, Andy, if you can scroll, yeah, there. That's what, following the rules with the TRIP fund, that's what the right-of-way would look like. So it'd have the weird shape block out kind of at the Benning and Sandalwood intersection. Now, part of that is going to be stormwater system, so it's going to be used for roadway anyway. The other parts that are kind of awkward outside of the back of curb, it has to be used for transportation purposes, is what the TRIP funds state. So you can put still the sidewalk and the benches and the trash receptacles like our standard code is along in those areas. But it's supposed to be designated as right-of-way and used for transportation.
Vehicular transportation, pedestrian transportation, is it defined?
Yes. As far as I know, yes.
Okay, I'm
We
getting
can
yes, but-
confirm these things. I can work with staff and confirm these things with FDOT.
Okay.
All right, Councilman Schmidt.
Thank you. If we don't designate it as right-of-way, what's the other option?
We have not asked that question. We can
Yeah.
delve into that.
What's that?
We have not asked that question to DOT, but we can delve into that.
And then in regards to the PD&E reevaluation, option A says if we take no action, the project would not be eligible for any state or federal grant opportunities. So we're required to do a PD&E reevaluation, another study to potentially get state and federal grants. We have to do another grant or another PD&E?
That's my understanding. You have to do a PD&E if you want federal grants. I think an update to the EIR would make us eligible for state grants.
So we can't use what we've already have in place to apply for state grants?
My understanding is no, we cannot.
And we have
EIR
Atkins.
stands for,
We have Atkins on the line to answer any questions related to that.
Who?
Atkins, our subconsultant.
how long would an environmental impact study take to redo for the
An
state?
updated EIR, my understanding is to be about 8 months. A whole new PD&E would be about 2 years.
So whoever's on the line, you can answer the question of we're required to do an EIR reevaluation to apply and get state grants? Well, you guys saying that, but they're saying something else, so I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
That is correct, that for the state grant, you have to, what you're doing, it's not a totally new study. It's a reevaluation of the old study and an update of the conditions to see if anything has changed.
Hold up.
Can you stop? We can't hear you.
Can you
It's
please
on
just hold?
gargled.
We are having.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
It's just an echo we have on our side.
Can you hear me now?
No, I want to hear her answer.
And can you try?
Okay, so this is Andrea Garcia from Atkins. Can you hear me clearer?
Yes.
I mean,
Okay,
they're both echoing.
What Kathy was going through was that we don't have to start over with a PD&E study unless you all would like to go for federal funding. Then you have to go through the federal process, and that's the one that will take about 2 years to get through.
Okay.
But since you've already done your PD&E, and since that was completed at the time, the EIR was completed then as well. But since that time, there have been design changes. So this would be a reevaluation of the effects to the environment due to the design changes. So we're proposing to do a design change and construction authorization reevaluation. So that will bring everything up to date so that you will be able to get your permits to move forward, and then also authorization to go into construction. And that's the 8-month process.
Okay, I appreciate, unfortunately, there's horrible issues here. Maybe some of my colleagues heard you, but.
Did I go too fast?
Between the stuff that you're saying and between some of the answers I've already been receiving this evening and today, I personally feel like this is not really ready to have a decision made this evening. So I'd make a motion to table this for the next meeting.
The motion is set, okay.
Well, yeah, whatever. Well, based on staff's.
No, when we get the information.
All right, well.
When we get the information, I'm sorry. I would like to make a motion to table this until staff's ready with further answers and details.
Okay, now that we have a timeline, all right. All right, calling the vote?
Nope.
It gets tables, yeah, just tables.
Oh.
Yeah, my bad. I mean, if there's any discussion to further, if there's any other questions to help staff get directed, I think we should do that. I know we're normally supposed to just kill it,
Yeah,
but I
no.
want to give direction.
Need the price for all 3 options, need the time for all 3 options, okay? Because what you're doing is you're saying it's going to take 2 years. Well, this was probably our number 1 priority on the state ask later in this program, but if we can't get it done for 2 years, then it comes off that list. So,
Can I speak to that
Yeah,
briefly?
please.
Yeah, the state appropriation process, if we did that request, that money would be available shortly after the state's fiscal year opens in July. And if we did option B, which would be the update of the EIR, that's about an 8-month process costing about $100,000. So that the timeline would work with that. If we did option C, which would be the whole new PD&E, my understanding is that's a 2-year process with a cost of about $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I feel like, for us to move forward on it all. Yeah. All right, so with any other further direction before we move forward on this? I thought I was.
Just a point of order, Mayor.
Yeah, please. Table, we just.
Does not allow discussion,
Yeah.
but we still needed that information.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure they at least had the direction of anything further. All right.
Thanks.
All right, so we're pushing forward. All right, 4B.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have an update on the US 98 feasibility study from the Marlar Bridge to the airport road, including the signal retiming update, and Mr. Zinguzzi is going to kick that off, or Ryan.
Yes, so FDOT did do a signal retiming over this last year. So they have provided a report that was provided to you all. Based on that report, they are saying that we should see about 5,500 vehicle hours reduced along that corridor of 98 and approximately a weekly fuel savings of 20,000 gallons based on the retiming of the signal. So hopefully we will start seeing that kind of improvement through the next tourist busy season. But according to their report, all the data was there. They've been tweaking it throughout all of last year. And then moving on, they started a PD&E study from the Marlar Bridge to airport. Funding ran out. So they compiled everything that they had and turned it into a feasibility report, and that has been included in your packet. With the feasibility report, they do have a conceptual 4-lane and 6-lane option. So that is in the report, and I kind of put them side by side at the end of the packet so you can kind of compare the two. This is all just feasibility concepts, just thoughts. So with that, I can answer any questions.
On some of the 6-lane conceptuals, there's more intersections, and then the 4, some of those added intersections go away. Is there a way to look for having those lights at these intersections, even if it stays 4? One particular being, south and north Mattie Kelly Boulevard. I know they identified that as an intersection light on the 6-lane, but not in the 4.
So I did talk to them specifically about the Mattie M. Kelly Boulevard, especially that if we make the north-south connection, that there will be a need for a light at 98 and on airport. They did not determine it needed a light there because right now it's just a dead-end road. So they didn't take into account, the future planning there. So they're open to that. Speaking to the open medians that we have along 98 right now, there are 44 along that 3-mile stretch. And per DOT guidelines for the type of road and the speed limit that road is, there should be like 24. So that would be why they're recommending to kind of cut back on median openings. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah. I agree with it. All right, does anyone else have any discussion? Yeah, jump on in.
When will they retime these lights?
So they said that they've been tweaking them throughout all of this last year. So they've been tweaking them, collecting data, and then adjusting the lights again based on that. So they just finished that process. So they've been doing it for the last year. So our subconsultant has all this data that's working on our own little PD&E study, and they're going to take all that data in and process it and give us some recommendations based on that. I do have one other update. They did say that between August and December of this year, they're looking to start a PD&E study on the west side, and it will include the Marlar Bridge. And they expect that study to take 30 to 48 months once they get somebody under contract.
Yeah, the only other point I would make is I made this to the staff. I don't think you were on the call. On your charts there, on pages 473, 474, location, or 472, 473, I'm sorry. Locations 1, 2, and 3 on the y-axis, you should be using the same numbers, okay? Because it skews what people receive from that chart. It is the, let's see what the title of it is. It's just the peak season signal retiming, location 3, 1, 2, and 3. So you go from 2,500 vehicles per hour to 5,000 vehicles per hour. And I know it's to separate between the lines, but it gives the false impression that all those segments are as busy as each other. And as we all know, they are not.
Just one question, Mayor, if I may.
Please.
The county we've contracted with them to take care of our lights, and so the state is going to retime them, I guess in conjunction with them?
Yeah, they've already gone through that whole process.
Okay, and so we're going to know when they've done it, I hope, to see if they actually did it and there's a difference?
It is done, so hopefully we see a difference.
All right.
That's what we're waiting for.
We can start watching.
All right, Jim, please. Yep.
Can you have the traffic signals folks that did the retiming, give me a call? I don't need to prolong this, but there's a difference. There should be probably a peak season timing and an off-season timing, because as you know, one of the timing measures is it triggers it and then it starts the 3-minute countdown, or if it triggers it, it starts a shorter time. And one car triggering it while everybody's going to work on 98 is probably not what you want, unless you can get everybody to go off those feeder roads at the same time. So I just want to know, I want to know their methodology, but I don't need a long thing.
Will do. All right, seeing no one else? All right, thanks so much.
Item 4C is an informational item requested by council. It is a list of the current city-owned properties. And Louis, did you have anything else on that?
No, we don't. I think the list is fairly straightforward unless council has further direction for us.
Councilwoman Aber? Oh, sorry. Oh.
Yeah, I was impressed by some of the prices of what we had, trying to figure out what we could, let go. But unfortunately, I don't have the map that goes with what these addresses are, so I didn't realize that Morgan Sports Center, since that's owned by Destin Water Users, that's why it's in red. But the other properties, like 101 Stallman's, $2 million, 111 Stallman's, $106,000. So is, I guess, the mapping that you gave us, numbering on here.
It's the same.
So it's easements property would be cheaper than at the actual properties of like homes and businesses, correct? His is bigger. Is that 101? Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, the cemetery, that does make a lot more sense. Thank you very much.
All right, Councilman Schmidt?
Yeah, on the agenda item or staff report, it talks about if there's any further properties to look at. So if we find any type of properties on here that we might be able to get rid of or change, there are 2 parcels on Indian Trail that some residents have been talking about would be an amazing community park. There are 2 parcels on the corner of Indian Trail and Hidden Pines. So just keep that on your peer view, I guess, if you're interested in future properties.
All right, Councilman Destin?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the property appraisal value, is that from the property appraisers themselves, or do we have some other? Where did we get the appraisal values?
Those values came from the just value on the property appraiser's website for each parcel.
Okay, and the other question is, a lot of these properties we inherited from the county when we incorporated. Some of them may have reverter clauses. That might be something else. If we decide to jump through a hoop and try to get rid of something, we better check on.
Item 4D is a state appropriations request items coming forward to Representative Maney's office, hopefully here by November 1st, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's correct. In the past 3 years, we've submitted appropriations requests through Representative Maney's office. We've done 2 requests a year for each of those, and historically, we've only gotten 1 approved each year. Actually, last year we didn't get any, and the most we've ever got approved is $270,000. But what I'd like from council tonight is to give us direction on which of the projects we have on our CIP list that might be appropriate for us to ask for a request for. Representative Maney's office did share some information with me. If it's a construction project, under ideal circumstances, they'd like that to be designed and permitted. They would also like there to be matching funds attached to it, and they want to make sure it'd be shovel-ready by the time the appropriation is made. And the job could be hopefully done within the fiscal year that money's allocated.
All right, and then just so, and for the strategic objective, since the Crosstown connector, we would meet all those qualifications for the Crosstown connector?
I believe so.
I believe so, okay. All right, Councilman Destin.
If they started it now, it'd be okay.
Thank you, Mayor. How many projects do we typically submit to him in each session? In other words, if we give him 25 projects and tell him to pick some and see, is that the way we do it?
No, we've only sent 2 over each of the past 3 years.
Okay, well, we have a big list here, and of course, one of my priorities is the Stallman US 98 connection. I've been working with the staff in Baskerville-Donovan, and Baskerville-Donovan believes that that project to try to get several things done that we can do that are affordable and doable are quite important. One of them is to get the intersection timed either by a human being so that we can get traffic through, and we all who've sat there know that it doesn't do that very efficiently. Over in Gulf Breeze, there is an intersection that's being done by a remote monitored computer, or maybe there are people there.
Yep.
But that's a project that is quite doable and could make a very big difference at that intersection. The other one, of course, is to try to get pedestrians out of that intersection, which have a really detrimental effect on it, either through a bridge, through a tunnel, or going around under the Marler Bridge now. So both of those would hit all the criteria that DOT likes, which would be smooth the traffic flow, create jobs. I mean, it hits all of them. So I would hope that we would go forward with that one as a request. After all, if we are ever successful in doing our Crosstown connector and pilot into that intersection without doing something to improve the functionality of it, we will create a disaster of monumental proportions, because all of us have been out on commons and watched the traffic back up in the summer afternoons from down past Walmart to the Airport Road. That's what we will import into that intersection, which is already the worst intersection in Destin, if we don't make these improvements that we can do in a pretty short period of time. So I would recommend that we do include the improvements to Stallman US 98 intersection as one of our requests, and I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second it.
All right, I got a motion, a second. I still got a bunch going on here. With the Stallman intersection, that's part of the Okaloosa County half cent. Would that's something that I know Shane showed us, that it's part of their capital improvement list. Is that a 50-50 match? Do you know anything about that as far as?
What they can give us.
Yeah.
Whatever they give us would be good
And this is the other half.
Yep, if the representative can get
The other-
money for us, then I'm not sure matches are even required, but if it is, then that would be a good place to look for it.
Okay. All right, up next, we have Councilman Guile. Discussions, though. Got a motion, and a second. Yep.
Thank you. I do have a question, and something you mentioned a minute ago. You said you typically only submit 2, and out of the 2 you submit, you've only gotten one approved in the past. And I think somewhere you told me the maximum funding you've ever were approved, wasn't that somewhere around $270,000?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is my question. Do we think there's going to be a negative if we try to submit 20, 25? Can't we prioritize that and say, hey, look, it's my impression that if we only submit 2, we're really saying we got things under control. We really don't need state appropriations for anything. If we show them kind of 20 or however many we have on this list, then it kind of gives the impression, well, hey, we could really use some help on some of these things. Maybe it would generate a little bit stronger look at. But is there a way that when we do it, we can prioritize and say, look, these Stallman connector or whatever, these are our crucials that we'd prefer you to look at first, but with these other 20, it gives you the impression that we really, really need your assistance more than we've had it in the past. So take a stronger look at what we got and try to generate that funding for us. Do you think that would be a benefit, or do you think that's going to be a negative?
In conversations I've had with the representative's office, the impression I get is they would probably rather see a smaller list submitted than a larger one. And they did give me an example. They said the county usually does these as well, but they only submit about 5.
I think we should submit 5 then.
So 5 should be the number?
I think so.
All right.
I don't have a problem with the number.
So what we need to look at and decide tonight is, based off this list, which 5 we think are key and crucial that we want to submit moving forward.
Yeah, all right. Well,
All
you
right.
got one for us? We got one motion. Not in a motion yet, but I mean, we'll vote on this one first, but if you have anything, I'll come back to you then.
I mean, obviously, Crosstown Connector has been a key for us. It's been a staple for the council for several years now, so in my opinion, that should be one. Obviously, I'm pushing for the dredge operation in the harbor so our fleet can move about and take care of their business and operate properly. I don't think that any one of these are more or less important, but those are the 2 I would push for if from my vote.
All right. Councilman Bagley. Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a step back just for a second and go through your list here, because there's some things you said that some of these projects don't even meet. So have they got all their permits? Do we have a cost estimate? Do we have, all these things? Because some of those, the dredge, we haven't even got, I agree, but we haven't got the survey done, so we don't have a cost estimate. We have a cost estimate for the survey, not for the work so where are we? We need to know which of these we might actually be able to have wrapped up in a bow prior to the end of session, not July 1st, but before the end of session, because they won't pass something that, oh, well, we've got a PD&E study and it'll be done in 8 months. Great, come back next year. Okay, that's the exact answer, because I go to all 4 of the ones in these 4 western counties, and the cities in Walton County, they all offered 3. Okay, the county offered 4 or 5. And then there were individuals in this legislative meeting, they come up and they say, we want you to find money for Alaqua or whatever, some other project expansion that is not in the incorporated area and not county money. So I think part of this discussion ought to be because we don't want to recommend something and then all of a sudden look kind of foolish when they go in session in January this year and they come out in March and say, well, we thought we could have had the PD&E study done by, the 1st of February, but we haven't really even started with it yet. So which of these do you think can be fully permitted and we can have a cost estimate prior to the legislature going into session in January? Because they're going to submit the bills, they're going to submit their request before they even call the legislature in session.
Well, I believe the undergrounding project would be an example of one that's ready, or will be, very shortly.
Okay.
The beach acquisition project, I know that we're getting close on Tarpon. I think the plans are about 60% now, so I think that's another one that would be reasonable.
So the beach, just the park development, because the acquisition is done.
Correct, just the park development. I would have to talk with about the Stallman intersection. I'd have to get some more information on that one. If there's some smaller projects that are related to that, we might be able to advance that, but I would need to have more detailed conversations with the engineer.
Okay. I mean, the timing, I think, can be done. We've already got the timing study.
Right,
So,
some of those smaller ones we might be able to incorporate, and that might be doable.
and this is the conversation I'll have, part of the conversation I'll have with them is, maybe it's not somebody all year long sitting there or remotely sitting there, but in summertime, somebody is monitoring that intersection, and that's why I want to know, because our traffic pattern is unique. Okay? I know Four Prong Lake will be.
Correct. Pickleball will be real close. In fact, it should be pretty much ready to go by then. We have asked for some money to help with phase 1, but it's going to be a phase project, so depending on how how much we want to build that out, we could ask for some additional money there.
Okay.
And our engineer wouldn't mind adding the Mattie Kelly Nature Walk, the outfall at the Joe's Bayou. We need an engineering design, and sometimes the state appropriations have helped us pay for engineering designs.
That's correct.
Okay, so because I've seen the nice drawing, but I haven't seen the engineered, where are we? Are we at 30% on that?
We haven't been given the green light to even go out for design yet.
Okay. I probably wouldn't support that one then, because I don't think you can do that before January.
No, that's what we're saying is that would be our request, is funding to help us complete the engineering design.
Okay, what's
Like they're
the
doing with the linear
estimated cost
park
of the
right now.
engineering design? Do you have a firm fixed cost estimate?
We're estimating that to be 175.
Not y'all's.
Right.
Have we gone out for an RFP? Have we got a bid? I'm just being a realist here. We can put that in there, but we take that to Maney, he's going to laugh. And you have to remember, and we're not just taking it to Representative Maney, we're taking it to Senator Trumbull. That is our legislative delegation. And if we don't have it, at least at the 90% level when we go on the 30th of October, we're just going to get laughed at. I want stuff that we can actually get.
I'd just like to say, the last funding that we did get from Senator Maney's office was for this exact thing, for the Mattie Kelly, the Maine to Mattie Kelly Linear Trail Park. So, and it was at the same stage as we're in with this outfall at Joe's Bayou. So that one was funded, and this is a very similar project.
And that was last year, right? And what time did this session start last year? Guys, these are all facts that y'all need to take in when you're making these recommendations and we're making decisions. Okay? It's not starting in the middle of March. It's starting at the beginning of January. That's all I'm saying. The other thing you have to remember is there are grants, and Jeff, you should know this better than anybody out there, in specific buckets. So there are resiliency grants, there's millions for resiliency grants. Okay, so when you look at the outfall, that would be a resiliency grant. When you look at the four-prong lake thing, that's a resiliency grant. When you look at the harbor dredging, that could be considered a resiliency grant because that allows free flow of the water. Anything that prevents flooding or mitigates, damage to the ecosystem, that can be considered. Undergrounding utilities actually falls under a resiliency grant. So in some places that have achieved those. So we have to know where we're asking them to get us money from. It's not just we're going to our rich uncle going, hey, we'd like to have, 6 snow cones. Will you buy 5 of them? This is what they cost. This is where they are. This is, do you have a snow cone fund? But there are other types of grants, transportation grants. So, that should cover Stallman. I'm just saying, we need y'all to help us neck this down so that we don't embarrass ourselves, because then we'll get nothing. And we shouldn't get nothing. As much as we pay in taxes in this state, we should get 1 or 2 things. But we have to be smart about it. And so I'm just asking you to help us be smart. That's all I'm asking.
All right. Councilman Schmidt.
Thank you. Is this calendar, Lance or Jeff, is this annual, this time frame that we're working on right now? So we've done this for a few years now?
The date that the requests have been due isn't always the same.
Okay.
I think it's a little earlier this year than it has been, but it's generally in the fall or early winter.
My first constructive criticism comment would be, I would highly suggest that we put a little reminder on our Outlook calendar to start this process like 6 months ago. 3 months ago, something. 14 days from the deadline is pushing it, in my opinion, because there's a very lengthy application in this packet that I can only imagine with you and the staff. I hope that you'll have support for this. It's going to take some time. And statistically, if we've submitted 2 and we've gotten 1, that's about 50% success rate. So if we submit 10, maybe we'll get 5. It's 50% success rate. So, but I also wanted to point out, if anybody read through the applications, you know, I don't think we have to keep our sights just on studies or dredging or construction or whatever. There's sections in this application that talks about benefiting at-risk youth and senior citizens and children and adults and elderly people, mental health, physical health. So the possibilities are potentially endless here. But because we are 14 days away potentially from a deadline, we do need to narrow it down. So, Mr. Destin, I'll ask to see if you'll either amend your motion or I can make a substitute. And I would like to, what I'd like to do is submit the one you mentioned. I'd like to submit the 4-prong lake, the harbor dredging, Crosstown connector, undergrounding, Matty Kelly outfall, and Morgan Sports artificial turf fields. And when you read through these questions, there's things in here that you can check the box yes on a lot of these. And so that's about 7 or 8, I think.
I'll make it second if you're okay with his
I
substitute.
don't have a problem with including them. I'm just afraid that if we include too many, it may get lost, but hey, we can take a shot.
All right, you got a motion and second for them?
I mean, please don't let this hold y'all back from submitting anything if you don't get them all done, but, I mean, that would be, I'd say we'd be submitting hopefully at least 2 or 3 of those 7 or 8, but unfortunately, here we are close to the deadline, so.
All right, so I got Stallman, 2 is 4-prong, 3 is dredge, Crosstown is 4, undergrounding is 5, and then artificial field 6. You said it for the artificial field?
Yep.
Okay. The 2 on there that staff said that we had prepped, and that looked better, would have been the beach, not even acquisition, the beach park and the pickleball courts are the 2 that are left out that seem to have
And the only thing
some-
I'll add, if I can, Mr. Mayor, is that I don't know how this weighs, Jeff, maybe you know from your experience, is when it talks about how we already been funded, how we received funding already for some of these projects. And so maybe that's something to consider where if they rank, if you haven't received funding already, then maybe that's a good thing. So we should prioritize those first maybe, because if they're in their mind, they might be saying, well, you've already gotten funding from this entity or government, whatever. So I would just keep that in consideration. Thoughts? That's all I got.
All right. Lance, comments?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jeff, did Representative Maney's office indicate the total amount of funds available for this area for this period?
I don't have that dollar amount, so he didn't specifically communicate that to me.
Just wanted to be sure. And I just wanted to just remind everybody too that, I mean, our process for this type of stuff starts when we have our visioning session, and usually in January. And that's why, one of the reasons why we have that. And we did take that into consideration for this exact thing, because we've got the match built in for the Crosstown connector. So, I mean, that was absolutely thought through, but the others, I agree. I mean, we can do more than that. But that's when this process starts for the future. So for next year, you guys can throw those ideas out there during that time frame so that it can get budgeted. I mean, even the outfall project was discussed during one of our workshops, and it didn't make the list. And so, I mean, that's when you talk about these things to make them move forward.
If I could just comment, Mr. Lance, with all due respect, we have that list. And I believe it's up to you, and I guess Jeff, to then take that list and start preparing this application and not wait until 14 days before the deadline to be making these decisions about state appropriations. So I hear you, but I think we've given you all those tools. So, you're kind of putting it, it sounds like you're putting it on the council. that we didn't ask y'all to go do this application.
I'm just reminding the council of the process, that's all. And
Okay.
it's an ongoing process for something
Okay.
like this.
I just want to make sure we're not missing something.
Councilman Destin, you have anything else?
I'm got a little foggy. Our list is what, 6 now?
We're at 6.
Well, that's probably overkill, but if that's what you'll want to send in, I'll go along and change it.
And I'll continue the second.
Okay. All right, so now we got Councilman Bagby.
Mine was answered, I'm good, thank you.
Hey, yeah, I'll vote for it, but I tend to agree with Mr. Destin. Anything over 3 or 4. Remember, usually we only have 3 minutes to address them. So picture, there'll actually be 2 representatives, Rudman and Maney, who have this county, and then Broxton, actually there'll be 4, because Broxton has the north end and Trumbull has the south end. So there'll be 4 of them. The good news is Broxton is the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate again this year. But we'll have 3 minutes to make our presentation, just like everybody else, individuals, every city, the counties have 3 minutes or whatever. You get up, you say, here's our priorities, we've given it to you. A couple of things that will help us. Broxton is the chair of the Appropriations Committee. He got, the college, for example, got $5 million last year, okay? The Northwest Florida State College, all the colleges got some money, but some of that in recurring funds, which I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but recurring funds means you're going to get it forever as opposed to you're going to get a one-shot thing. So the college got some money, just one shot, and some money in recurring funds, which is what you actually want to get, you hope to get. And then at the end, the sprinkle list comes out, and then they start leaving a little, sugar money on some of these projects. But to ask there is no budget for these projects, just so everybody understands the process. They are doing revenue estimating as we speak, and then right before session, the Revenue Estimating Committee will come deliver to the 2 budget committees. This is how much the budget can be, this is how much we estimate will come in, or how much is going to be in the coffers, and that's your top line, and then they start dividing that. And the good news is, because of our economy in this state, the number just keeps growing and growing and growing. But I like I said, I'll vote for this, but 4 is probably too many, but 4 is, at least better than 6.
Thinks everyone's going to say 6. Just want to make sure they're on the record.
6 is good.
All right, so the Christmas tree is gone, and so now we have a motion for those 6. Everyone still good with what?
Mayor?
Yeah, please.
I do have one question I'd like some clarity on. Do we have the discretion as to how much we ask for? Or do you want to provide us that direction as well?
Tell them to ask what they want.
Jim, we're looking at you.
What's the money amount?
I mean, would it just be 50%? So we're trying to get these 50% max recommendation?
I don't know if
Well-
that's required.
All of this is going to require matches. I mean, last year, just to give you an example, Representative Maney put in $450,000 for a fire truck for the Baker Volunteer Fire Department, and which is not even in his district, but they came to him and asked him for help specifically, and he put in for it. They didn't get it. The governor, vetoed that. It got through the appropriations process, but, at the end, everybody knows the governor just starts lining through stuff. So I would say, we ask for whatever we want to try to get. I mean, for 4-prong, I would think that we would ask for at least $1 million. Yeah. And I would volunteer to be the legislative lead on the document to pull, the county ought to have some skin in the game. Those 2 homeowners associations that spoke to you, they ought to have some skin in the game. The state caused most of that problem, but, and we caused a little bit of that problem too ourselves when, Jay Odom moved the road and all the drainage goes into that lake out there. So I I don't think we even have to say, I think that's something that can be fleshed out afterwards. After, if we say, here's our 6, and then they say, okay, give us the worksheets on those 6. Because when you're making your presentations, then I think there's a time after that when you actually have to have the sheets. It may be the next day, but.
Well, the applications themselves do have a place where you need to identify your match and how much you're requesting. For example, last year, I did do an undergrounding request. It wasn't approved, but I asked for 2 million. So I don't know that we didn't want to necessarily ask for half of what some of these projects are, because in the undergrounding situation, we'd be asking for 6 or 7 million probably, which I think is unrealistic given we couldn't get to last year.
Well, and there's a difference too, remember, between asking for grants and asking for appropriations. Because the appropes, they can do whatever they want to do. A grant, there's got to be a vehicle, a resiliency grant or a transportation grant or a sports type grant. There are different types of grants that they provide. So that's not necessarily the appropriations, if that makes sense.
All right, Councilman Destin.
Clarification, Mayor, of the pedestrian pathway under the Marler Bridge and the Stallman intersection improvements, those are one subject. And I see there's no amount of money there, so the under the bridge thing, as long as we close on the property there, then that's going to be a pretty easy one. So I would suggest that we lump those two together and ask for 400,000.
Are you okay with that? Is the second of the motion? We're gonna
Yep,
lump, we're gonna
I
lump
think so.
1.4, 1.5 under one project? All right.
Jeff, did you get the 400,000 request for that?
Yes, I got that.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a motion at this point? All right, I don't see anything further discussion. We're gonna vote on, let's call it 7, maybe 6, depending on how you want to round it up. All right, calling the vote. All right, Jeff, get to work.
Don't call me for the next 2 weeks, all right?
I'll stay out of your calendar.
No problem.
Item 4E is an informational-only item on the TDC monthly report, and Crystal is here to answer any questions you may have.
Councilman Schmidt? Sorry.
Thank you. I just want to make sure there's a lot of numbers and lines here. If I'm looking at it correctly, year-to-date, that says it's 42 million, nearly $43 million in collections this fiscal year. Is that correct?
So, yeah, Okaloosa
see?
County has collected $42 million during fiscal year '23
42, okay. And then
from all of the county for all the bed taxes.
from all the bed tax, okay. And then if I go to the page where I think it's breaking it down by the taxing district, it says that we're at, Destin's at 26,
That's correct, 26 million of the 42 million collected in Okaloosa County.
so 26 of the 42, which is about, what percentage would that be approximately? About 54?
Just over 50, yeah.
Wow, okay, so that's good to know, Destin, about 54%. And then of that 40-something million dollars, how does that get allocated to the taxing districts? Is it 12.5%, is that right?
So of the 42 million that's collected by the county, we have an interlocal agreement between the county and the municipalities, whereby the municipalities receive 12.5% of that 42 million. Destin is in that agreement, and we get to request up to 50% of that 12.5%.
So 12.5 of that would be about 5.3 million that the districts get. And then you said Destin gets to request about half of that, so that would be about 2.6, up to $2.6 million that we could potentially use. I know we're kind of rough numbers here.
Yes, you're correct. That's about, it's just over 2.5 million. And as you may recall, this year, we borrowed some money from the TDC, from their bed tax reserves, to purchase tarpon, to give our half towards the purchase of the tarpon beach. So we're on the, we'll be using 750,000 of that for the next 9 years.
Right.
So you take that 2.6 million, subtract out that $750,000.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we tend to need approximately $600,000 a year for our waterfront park operations. So that's maintaining all of the beach accesses, the trash bins, the bathrooms, the showers, and everything that we have all along our
Would that
waterfront
include
park.
the Tarpon Park and the Crystal Beach Park as well?
Yes.
That'll add to that.
And the boardwalks as
increase.
well. So like any city boardwalk areas.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you. I'm very glad we have this. It provides a lot of very beneficial data, so thank you.
So my only question, and I don't know if anyone here knows, I guess the only other place that would have the beach expense or the liability would be Okaloosa Island. And that's under Fort Walton Beach, or is that that's under the county?
That's under the county.
That's
Bay
under the
County pays for that directly.
Okay, so we're all splitting the 12.5%, but we're the only ones encumbering a cost while every other city just benefits from the side. Is there any room to talk to them about that as far as helping us as the beaches get, as we get more and more beachfront going, that's just more and more liability out of our end. And I think it's only fair that they help offset the cost before we get our 12.5%. I would like to see it almost as a net thing, a net gross, so it would be the cost of the beaches, then we all split. And I don't know if is that even legally binding or possible at this point? Anything's possible.
You can talk about anything, yes.
All right. I mean, I don't know if the council's willing to, not tonight? Okay. Oh, well. All right, Councilman Guile.
Some of this may be kind of what you were leading to, but I have a very kind of similar question. So obviously, the negotiations for the 6.25% of the 12.5% situation, that was before all this data became available, from what I understand. So before the county or TDC or anyone understood exactly what the contribution levels were, is there any room to go back and renegotiate any of these moving
Just ask
forward?
that. Anything is
and
possible is what I'm hearing.
Go back forward? All right. So that's where I was leading with that, but I blanked out because I was doing a calculation, so I was over here trying to do some math.
No, but I'm under the same sentiment of now that we know where this money's coming from, I still want it to be fair for the county, but I also think it's fair that the county share the expense before distributing the profits to all the municipalities. So just throwing my 2 cents out there. So no other further discussion up here. Yeah, I know. All right, Lance.
Thanks, sir. Item 4F regarding the net positive environmental benefit, or the NPEB. And this was discussed a few meetings back, and council asked staff to do some homework and take it to one of the boards for, get their input on it, and we do have that now. And Louis, you want to kick this one off, or Steve?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. You may remember brought this specific topic back to you all a few meetings back, and you requested that we take it to the Harbor Waterways Board for their input. Staff did that. We do have their recommendations. Staff provided the exact same recommendations that were presented to y'all a few meetings back. However, the Harbor Waterways Board considered those recommendations, and then upon hearing several members of the public speak on the specific topic, they came up with their own recommendation. And I'll run through that very briefly. Essentially, the MPEB would only apply to all new construction, and then any expansion of existing construction, marine constructions. And then it should not apply to any board-for-board replacement. And then the MPB, as far as the percentage of the project, should be applied in the following manner, and I'll explain this here momentarily. So Class 1 marine construction projects are at a 7% of the project. A Class 2 construction project would be at 10%, and a Class 3 would be at 25%. Now, you may be wondering what Class 1, 2, and 3 is. And that comes from the proposed language of the new draft LDC, specifically within the marina or the Article 2, which breaks out various marine construction projects and how they are reviewed by staff, the board, and then you all at City Council. So Class 1, as proposed right now, would be any self-certified marine construction project. So if you fall under the self-certification, that's a Class 1, and that's proposed right now in Article 2 to be just a staff level review. There's no Harbor Waterways Board review, and therefore no recommendation from Harbor Waterways Board to City Council. So it would just be self-certification residential dock, which essentially is 1,000 square feet or less, and then no more than 2 slips. If you meet that criteria, you're self-certification. And so that would go straight to marine construction permitting. Class 2 would be any residential dock that exceeds the 1,000 square foot or the 3 slips. And then a Class 3 is all commercial marine construction permits and or any residential permit that doesn't fall under Class 1 or Class 2. So that's basically the breakdown of that percentage per Class 1, 2, and 3. That's the Harbor Waterways Board recommendation based upon the discussion and the input from the public. And we do have the Harbor Waterways Board Chair here for any further questions or discussion on that.
All right, Councilman Schmidt beat you.
Sure, thank you very much for that, Steve. And I'd like to move the City Council approve the HWB's recommendation on the application and implementation, a lot of Asians, of the NPEB fee and direct staff to develop an ordinance to codify these changes into the LDC as soon as possible.
Second.
A motion and a second. You have anything
Now,
further?
that as soon as possible, or when the draft LDC is adopted, I guess a little clarification on that is because how will any current projects that are being under review, will those be delayed? Will they fall under this new change if they're already being reviewed, or how will anything current be impacted?
I'll defer the pending ordinance language to Lewis and Kim.
Okay. I just don't want to delay current ones, but I also don't want to put the current ones under the old ordinance. So I want to make sure that they can hopefully proceed under whatever change we do, but as soon as possible. I didn't know what that would mean, so.
If council wants to go this route and that motion gets approved by vote, then we can invoke the pending ordinance doctrine on first reading of the ordinance, if you'd like.
Okay. Sounds good.
Councilwoman Aber.
Well, that was my exact question. I wanted to make sure those that are currently waiting, that are, under this extensive cost, which we don't want to put on them. So that's wonderful. I agree that would be great. Give those that are currently pending, don't make them wait, but give them the new information and under the new ordinance. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Destin.
What do we currently charge? Is it broken into 3, Class 1, 2, and 3, or no?
Currently, no. It is a flat rate of 25% of the cost of construction.
And does that apply to the residential?
Yes.
Small residential docks also?
It does currently, yes.
Of course, the only question that comes to mind is it appears that we were going to charge these fees according to how much review the staff does, rather than net environmental positive benefit, which seems kind of counterintuitive to a net and positive, environmental positive. I mean, we're connecting it to staff time, which we're already charging for, I believe. Don't we charge to review DOS projects?
The fee for the project, for the application is built in, and that is charged for staff's time. The MPB fee is not for staff's time.
Okay, well, I don't see any connection to net environmental positive benefit here on these graduated fees. Can you explain to me what it is?
The discussion at the Harbor Waterways Board was essentially when it comes to residential marine construction projects, that the higher the fee, the more impactful it is and the less likely residential property owners would come in to actually upgrade their facilities based on the extra cost for the MPEB.
I get that, but that's still not really tied to environmental impact, is it, of the project, which would depend on the size and type of project. But Joe, I'll vote to bring it forward, but, that doesn't seem to have a whole lot of connection to the very issue. So as we go through first and second reading, perhaps we can come with a more rational basis to connect it to environmental impact and amend the ordinance as we go forward.
Like I said, the chairman of the Harbor Waterways Board is in the audience, and staff did reach out to see if he would come speak.
There he is.
So, if you'd like to ask questions about that, he's here.
John Stevens. So we actually had like 30 people in the audience. There were residents, and they all were against it. So it was kind of our way of kind of making the public feel like they weren't getting charged what the commercial businesses were being charged, and also bigger docks for private citizens too. So that's why we brought the fees down.
If it's the size of the project is having the bigger impact on the environment, which I think is the core principle. And we could exempt residential docks under a certain size. But anyway, we'll hash those parts out as we get to the ordinance. Thanks.
All right. Councilman Bagby.
Yeah, I'm probably exactly where Mr. Destin is. And I understand you get 30 residents there looking you in the face. You kind of want to make sure you listen and address their concerns. But it doesn't address what the program is for. And so the program has a purpose, and it's basically done a pretty good job of keeping the harbor clean. The problem is this ought to be a net zero program where people are paying in and we're spending money on pumps, or we're spending money on inspections, or we're spending money on, getting trash out of the harbor or the little waterways. And so Crystal, any idea what the cost of this program is?
The accounting system has not shown the true cost of maintaining the harbor pump on all of the dredging and water quality programs in the past. It only shows what the NPEB fees have been spent on, and I can promise you it's just a fraction of the cost to the city for maintaining those items.
Yeah, and so my issue is I agree, based on, you can make it a 5, a 10, a 15, and a 25, and the big commercial projects are 25 because they're going to have the most impact, and they probably, one or two of them might have a pump out station, and that's, we're going to need to inspect that more often than we are, my dock on the bayou or my dock on the harbor somewhere on Holiday Isle, but there should be a cost. And I get the whole thing that started this was 25% is too much if I'm replacing my dock at my house that holds one boat, But somebody's going to have to out and inspect it. It's not just the dock. It's, do you have the retaining wall, or do you have riprap, or whatever you're supposed to have, and is it functional so that, storm water is not washing stuff into the harbor? So I guess I'm like Mr. Destin. I'll vote for this tonight, but when it comes back as an ordinance, this doesn't work for me because it's tied to something that has nothing to do with what the program is supposed to be about. And so our funding ought to be tied to what the program's about. And this is environmental benefit, not review time by the staff, because that's already covered, but inspection time is not covered, right? To go out and make sure they built it right and that they use the proper materials, and we don't have creosote going into the harbor or whatever. So, that's just where I am right now.
Councilman Guile.
Thank you very much. And I hear Councilman Bagby's perspective, but from my perspective, I think these percentages are too small. The 7, 10 are substantially too small. We're looking at potential dredging operations, pump maintenance, replacement. There's going to be a deficit overall. And I understand, as you're saying, Crystal, that's somewhat hard to quantify, but ultimately, if we were looking at a pool of money, we would be negative right now in trying to maintain all of this. So if we don't take this serious and put reasonable numbers here, our alternatives are going to be looking at either raising taxes for waterfront properties, or we're going to have to look at other options in order to acquire that money, or shuffle money from left to right, rob Peter to pay Paul in some sense. So although I understand a residential application isn't as impactful as a commercial, in my opinion, I think those percentages should be closer to 15, 20, 25%, so that the city overall can do the job of maintaining and keeping that water quality where it needs to be.
Yeah, I'd piggyback and kind of split the difference between, I guess, the three of you. And if you were to raise the fees and then had some kind of subtraction of a net positive material or whatever creates this more of a net positive environmental program that falls under the programming, maybe there's a way to add to these fees, but then have a subtraction clause if they're using specific net positive materials. I know that was a recommendation we were talking about when we brought it back last time. But no, I agree. It's a really big deficit. I mean, I think we've raised like 44,000 in this bucket, and to do anything is going to be hundreds of thousands in the harbor. So I think the fees should be raised higher, with potentially some way to reduce those percentages if they're going through this program of net positive environmental. Councilman Destin.
And that's not a bad idea, Mayor, if you use the eco piles and some of the other environmental
Exactly.
friendly materials, you should get direct one-for-one to your
Exactly.
fee. So that we'll talk about also.
Councilman Bagby.
Yeah, originally I was just going to move to table this, because to me, this is like the first item that we had. We're not really ready to say the numbers, because you remember there's actually not 3 numbers here. There's 4 numbers. 0, 7, 50. So, and I think I'm going to go ahead and make that motion. I'm going to make a substitute motion to table this item and have the staff come back with a little bit better numbers on what we've spent and what we've brought in on this program. And we may send it back to the Harbor Waterways Committee so he can see 30 more citizens if this passes.
All right, well, for the sake of consistently breaking Robert's rules, Kevin, anything for direction? No more discussion, but further direction, I'll take a direction comment for staff. Nothing? Okay.
Yeah, my direction for staff is thank you for doing what we asked you to do the first time. Thank you to Harbor Waterways for doing what we asked you to do. And I look forward to talking about it, hopefully one day soon.
Clarification from staff. In the meantime, whilst this is happening, do we go back to pending ordinance, or do we operate as is today?
Can't go back to a pending ordinance if you don't know what the ordinance is going to say, so that won't be an option.
No, do we have a second? No. Oh, no, we don't. We don't, not at the moment.
Okay, so the
No.
motion before that was to send this to the staff.
To prepare, to ordinance.
Yeah, so I'll just to put this in a little bit of perspective. So in 2022, for example, we collected $5,575 in NPEB fees under the current program, as it is, the 25% of certain types of docks. Our electric bill for the harbor pump was $44,000, actually $45,000. So just to put, and that's just the pump, just running the pump.
When I asked you a
So
couple
that
meetings
doesn't
ago,
include all of the maintenance that we've done on the pump And then, of course, the periodic dredging that the city does, I'll have to dig more into the files for that.
When I asked a few meetings ago how much we had in the net environmental positive fund, it was 100,000.
Today, we have $200,000 in there. $100,000 is awaiting, we ordered another component for the harbor pump. We're waiting for that to be delivered, and then, that's going to go out on that contract. And then we have approximately $110,000 left that I budgeted for FY 2024 to help us with the dredging and the bathymetric study that we just got started.
Okay, so we have collected 210,000 or more since we may have spent some of it, and since this has been in effect?
So since it's been in effect, let's see, we've gathered, 1 year as low as $1,800. Our biggest year was $67,000. So we've been collecting an average of $27,000 a year. And again, the electric bill alone is over $40,000 a year.
Okay, now we can cherry pick the numbers for the low years. How much have we collected since it went into existence?
Since it went into existence, that's a total of $456,000.
Okay, so that's a little better than 6,000 a year. So the point being that we have collected substantial funds and we have spent them. So, and we will continue to do so.
All right, well, trying to point of order myself, there wasn't a second on the table, and I'm not hearing a second? Yep. All right, so it'll die for the lack of a second, and we still have the original motion on the floor. And Kevin, you have anything else before we call the vote? All right, now I can take you off again. All right, call the vote.
Can you restate the motion?
Please.
As it's said.
It's as written, just to take this and recommend staff to direct an ordinance to codify these changes with the tiered, and then we'll have 2 readings when that comes to us.
All right, good deal. All right, ayes have it, so moved. Sorry, community development team, for the whiplash. All right, moving right along.
4G, and this is slightly out of order, but for a good reason. This is the announcements, and I just have a few. I just want to remind everybody that the Code Compliance Department will hold a workshop next week on Monday in this room, Monday the 23rd at 6 p.m. And it's a chance for all the public to stop by and meet the officers and ask as many questions as they want. So I encourage you to come out for that event. Also, the city's open house will be Wednesday, October the 25th, from 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. We invite everyone to stop by the community center for the free fish fry and learn about some of the city departments and partners that we have. Also, the week after that, we'll have our annual Fall Fest on October the 30th with its annual jack-o'-lantern judging contest and other fun things for kids of all ages to do. So bring your kids over there to the community center. The Human Resources Department has come up with a few announcements for FY23. They wanted you to know that they've increased employee voluntary retirement contributions by 38%, reduced employee turnover rate by 12%, filled 80% of the vacancies in an average of 45 days, and offered 7 professional and personal development training courses. Finally, all youth anglers under the age of 14 are welcome to participate in the annual Pinfish Classic on November the 4th in the morning behind AJ's. It's fun every year, so please make sure you get your kids out there for that. Next up is 4H and 4I, as well as the first public hearing, are all related matters. That's why we did our announcements first. And I'm happy to introduce Special Counsel Chef Wright to introduce these items for us.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. Glad to be back. The 4H is the set of contracts that will embody the city's relationship with FPL for the undergrounding of FPL's facilities, which are the major part, not nearly all. There's a lot of others with the telecom, cable, and broadband companies, but that will embody the majority of the undergrounding project for this phase 1. Phase 1 runs from Marlar Bridge to Airport Road. There are lines that come off to connect the feeders that run down 98 to facilities. We call them in the utility business service laterals. Some of them are 50 feet long, some of them are 100. I think the longest one in the project area goes from 98 down to a condo that is a fair distance away from 98, and I think it's 822 feet. But they're there. There's also some additional conductor that it comes off 98, off the feeders from 98 to loop into switches and to loop into existing facilities that enable the electrical facilities to connect to each other as a reliability measure. If they connect to distribution lines coming from other places so they can back each other up. You can open them up if you need to separate area where there's a problem, keep them closed normally. The 4 agreements are 2 underground facilities conversion agreements. The first one is for 3.25 miles of the project. The reason we have a separate contract for that is that when we negotiated the franchise agreement with FPL a couple of years ago, we were able to negotiate a very favorable storm restoration cost credit of $770,000 per mile. If you look in the agreement, you'll notice that credit, along with other credits that are embedded in FPL's tariff, lead to the city not having to pay to FPL anything for that portion of the conversion. The second agreement is identical in all respects, except that it applies to the other 2.44 miles of the project, and it has a lower credit associated with it. It's a much lower storm restoration cost credit of $109,000 a mile, but in the meantime, FPL has increased its credit for the differential between overhead and underground operating and maintenance costs, or O&M credits. So the total credit there is $314,000 per mile. There's a net due to FPL for that piece of it, for what FPL is doing, giving us the materials, of $688,000. Those are the two agreements, and that's part of the package. The next agreement is the applicant installed facilities agreement. The city has the right, which it is going to choose to exercise, to hire its own contractors to do the work. We can manage them directly, we can control the timing, et cetera, et cetera. Every municipality that I've worked with on undergrounding in FPL's service area has chosen to go the applicant installed route. Basically, that agreement just says, we're going to do it, we're going to comply with all of FPL's requirements, FPL gets to inspect, FPL gets to make sure everything's going along like it's supposed to, but we get to do the work. The final agreement is a right-of-way agreement. When the project is complete, FPL will own the facilities. That's actually part of the applicant installed facilities agreement that says at the end of the project they own it, not surprisingly. They're going to maintain it for as long as there are people living here, 100 years, 200, 500 years, however long it is. But they will own the facilities. They will be in most cases, in city jurisdictional rights of way. They need to have a legal right to be there, and that's what this right of way provides. Additionally, there are a number, I think the number is 126, of private easements that the utility consultants of Florida folks have been in the process of getting consents for, and we're geared up to be submitting those to be recorded when they're in legal form. We actually have the legal form of the agreement. So those are the 4 agreements that really altogether comprise item 4H for you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so I will entertain a motion for 4H, the undergrounding overhead utilities. I do not know what page it's
Mr.
on.
Mayor, I move to allow the city manager to execute the binding cost estimate and the overhead utility conversion agreements with FPL.
I'll second.
Got a motion and second. Any further discussions? Seeing none, calling the vote. All right, ayes have it unanimously, so moved. 4I, Resolution 3222, the reimbursement resolution for undergrounding. Do I have a motion?
So this reimbursement resolution, it allows us in the future, if we borrow money, to reimburse ourselves for any costs that happen between now and the completion of this project. Well, I think it has an 18-month window on it that will allow the the debt to go towards reimbursing the city for any expenses that we incur at this point in time. So for example, if we approve this resolution tonight and I pay FPL the $688,000 to order the materials and get these conversion agreements underway, then that would be reimbursable by any debt that we may wish to borrow in the future.
All right, I'll entertain a motion as soon as someone pulls up the recommended.
I move to approve Resolution 2322.
All right, motion.
I'll second that.
Second. Seeing no further discussions, calling the vote. Jim. Confirm. All right, ayes have it unanimously, so moved. All right, thank you so much, Lance. Kim, take it away.
This is ordinance number 2315 CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, requiring undergrounding of utilities, changing the name of Chapter 18 of the Code of Ordinances from Streets and Public Places to Utilities, Streets, and Public Places, amending Chapter 18 of the Code of Ordinances to establish a new Article 5, undergrounding of utility facilities, and making other amendments to Chapter 18 for consistency with Article 5, establishing provisions requiring the undergrounding of utilities, providing for private property owners' responsibility, providing for definitions, providing for phased conversion of existing overhead utility facilities, providing for certain permitting requirements, prohibiting permits for new overhead utility facilities, providing for exceptions, providing for penalties, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Code of Ordinances, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is a public hearing, and this is first reading.
Thank you so much. Seeing that this is a public hearing, at this time I will open up public comments for this specific issue. Seeing none, closing the public comments, entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2315 CC on first reading and direct city clerk to advertise second reading on November 6, 2023.
Do I hear a second? Second. Okay, Councilman Bagby?
Yeah, so I know this has to come back, so Ryan, I want to see my map when this comes back for second reading. You understand what I'm saying?
What's he saying?
What's he saying? Map.
What kind
All
of
I
map?
want is a GIS map with a line that shows where all these lines are going. And I would have made it on the first two, but they don't come back but this one comes back, and I want that map as part of the packet when it comes back.
I did put together a quick and dirty map.
Yeah, it'd take 5 minutes in PowerPoint
So-
with a GIS map.
I'll work on refining it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilman Schmidt.
Thank you. Just to confirm, Shep, you said earlier today that the requirement from the street to the residential properties will be covered and paid for by the city.
As part of the overall project budget, yes, sir.
Right. So when it talks about that property owners, private property owners are required to do it, I'm assuming it speaks somewhere specifically to that point that says that.
So let's pause for a second because the ordinance is separate from the items that we just passed. Kim, could you just kind of differentiate between the two, between this ordinance that we're talking about now?
Yes, but I think that is
compared to
what
the
Councilmember
agreement.
Schmidt is asking about, is the ordinance. And
Yeah.
go ahead. I see your light go on.
The answer is yes to your question, and to just be real direct and candid here, this is to address the problem, the potential problem, which I have seen occur, where you get somebody who just doesn't want to do it, and they fuss and fuss and fuss and fuss. You want the legal capability to make sure that everything gets put underground. Because if you're left with stuff in the air, electrical facilities in the air, you got the poles, and when the storm comes through, you got stuff that's down, you got distribution wires that are down. You can't re-energize the system. It's a protection for the city. Really, that's the real intent here. It's a protection for the city to be able to make sure that the whole project gets done.
Yeah, and I
So
would add to that, it actually imposes code compliance penalties if we need that.
Right, I guess my question is, I just want to make sure, from my understanding, the private property owner doesn't have to pay to underground it from the street to their house.
To the
They do
meter.
not have to do that.
That is correct. They
And
do,
that's-
they do not have to pay.
That's in this ordinance.
Well, that's actually not in the ordinance per se. That's in the project specifications, and I've discussed that with multiple of y'all individually, as well as the project team and city staff all along. And everybody understands that that is the way the city wants to proceed. Those numbers, what we call the service laterals that go from what's now the pole at the street or the riser at the street to the meter, include undergrounding everything from the street to the meter.
So is there a reason why we would not specifically write in the ordinance, I guess under section 1874, it talks about the private property owner's responsibility? Is there a reason why we wouldn't add in there whose responsibility is to pay for it?
I don't think there's any reason not to, except right now you got the ordinance in front of you, but Kim and I could fix that if you want to.
We can add it. The purpose of the ordinance was to give us enforcement abilities, so it wouldn't be necessary to enforce against ourselves, and we're the ones paying for it, and it's contained in the other documents that you approved first, so that's why it's not in here currently. However, I mean, if you want a line in there that acknowledges the city's payment responsibilities, we
So
can
the
put
other
it in.
document, the agreement, is what it says that the city is going to pay for connecting it to their properties.
Right.
And that's,
To be clear, it's actually the project specifications that are embodied in the RFP that you have voted to issue, and that will be embodied in the construction contracts with the contractors whom the city hires to do the work.
We could,
And to be clear, this is the big part of this is the big part of the ordinance is to make it clear that the city favors undergrounding for all the good reasons that are laid out in the ordinance, and that when utilities go to convert or try to upgrade facilities, they can't do more than one span of wire or one pole without converting what they're doing to underground, whether it's in phase one or in some other activity that's going on outside the city's overall undergrounding project.
Okay. All right, Councilman Destin?
Yeah, thank you. The object of this is to make sure the folks that are out in the right of way, once we've got Florida Power and Light underground, don't say, yeah, well, I'll do it next week or next month, and so then we've defeated it. And as far as a line in the ordinance saying the city's going to pay for other parts, you know, when you redevelop property now under our ordinances, you have to put your utilities underground. I did that when I did restaurants. And so I don't know that we want to step in and say the city's going to pay for that.
And actually, if I could clarify, it's within the scope of the city's project, which is embodied in this phase one and the to be developed and signed contracts with the contractors to do the conversions in phase one. That's where we're going to pay for it. If it's somebody else 4 miles away, and they're, as Councilmember Destin just said, they're redeveloping a property in a way that triggers the applicability of the ordinance, they've got to underground then. Or if one of the cable companies decides they want to either run some new stuff or convert something from overhead to better upgrade their facilities, and it's 10 poles worth, they have to convert to underground. That's completely outside the phase one contract. The phase one project, I should have said.
Councilwoman Neighbor? Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Go ahead.
Jim?
Just so we're all clear on the same sheet, it's not to the property, it's to the meter.
It's to the meter, yes, sir.
And it's only in phase one.
It's in phase one for now, because that's all we got.
Phase one for now until we approve the other phases.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Because what I think we'll run into is not an issue necessarily with this, because if we have to run it to somebody's meter, it's an A to B line, right? It's not 400 feet this way, and then 200 feet that way, and then 100 feet that way. It is from here, 600 feet straight line, unless they want to pay different, because what happens, and cable is the worst. I mean, people will put those little orange cables on top of the ground because somebody's cable went out and haven't figured out how to, where it's broken. So they just run it along the top of the ground and it stays there for like 2 months, just laying on somebody's yard. These guys, no offense, because I do love you, but, the power company will just a straight line to the box. And so if I want it moved, if I want it to follow my driveway or follow my whatever, does this allow for them to, at some extra cost to them, change the straight line? Because it's just from the pole, where the pole goes underground, to the box.
Let's distinguish, if we can, between FPL and the cable telecom
Yeah.
broadband carriers.
Okay.
FPL,
It's actually not
FPL is
FPL
not
putting it underground, it's us
FPL
putting it underground.
FPL is not going to leave anything lying on
Right.
the ground. We will install the conduit pursuant to their engineering design and their specifications to the little riser at right below the meter. It'll come up out and go into the meter. That's FPL. On the cable side, I'm sure that what you said happens. It should be designed in much the same way. The general concept that we are working with here is that, to the extent reasonably possible, the conduits will be co-located within code specifications of each other, but basically in the same routing. Now, your scenario could happen, it shouldn't, because everything that we do with Comcast and Unity Fiber should be Cox, I said, sorry, they both start with CO. Cox and Unity Fiber ought to be designed and being installed at the same time as everything else. And the business with folks leaving stuff lying on the ground, that's an enforcement problem.
Yeah, I was just using that example. I'm
No,
not
it's-
worried about anything lying on the ground, I'm not worried about the cable lying on the ground. But right now, it goes from the pole straight to the box. So if the pole's over there at that exit sign and my meter is right here, that line is going right through the air through here. Doesn't matter if there's a driveway, doesn't matter if there's irrigation lines, 2 sidewalks, a brick patio that I put in, after construction, it just goes straight. And it's going to go straight.
And I'm not the contractor and I'm not the design engineer, but since you're boring underneath everything else, it should go straight.
Okay. Councilwoman Aber, anything else?
That was kind of in the same respect of what I was going to ask, if they're going to have any kind of you have somebody with a driveway and a new patio and it's not a direct feed, but it sounds like Jim's pretty much asked the same question.
You should be going under everything that's there.
All right. Got anything for us? All right. I don't have anything else up here. Does anyone have anything else to say, or we're ready to call a vote? Call a vote. That's what I was kind of asking in a really bad way.
I don't know if we did, but just to make sure, yeah.
Sorry, Ray, I'm gonna.
Second.
Motion is second. All right. Thank you, Kevin. We're good to go now?
All right.
All right. I have it so moved. No, thank you for that. All right. Next reading.
Okay, this is ordinance 2318 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to a natural gas utility franchise of the Okaloosa Gas District, extending ordinance 1302 CN for an additional 10 years pursuant to the same terms and conditions set forth in ordinance 1302 CN, providing for repealing, severability, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading and a public hearing.
Seeing that this is first reading, I will open the floor right now for public comments on this topic. Seeing none, I'll close the public comments at this time and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2315 CC on first reading and direct the city clerk to advertise second reading on November 6, 2023.
Second.
A motion and a second. Councilman Destin? 5B. Natural gas. Button.
Is this an exclusive franchise? Like cable and like garbage and like a lot of our other franchises?
This is a non-exclusive franchise, but they're pretty much the only game in town,
They
as I
are,
understand
so
it.
they don't really need it. I remember when we first started negotiating this franchise with them, they have a board of directors and they have steadfastly refused to allow us to put someone on it. Is that still the case?
I have not asked that question because nobody on either side had any issues, but if you'd like to have those discussions, I certainly can.
Yeah.
It's,
And they pay a franchise fee, is that correct?
yeah, if you want to answer the franchise. Yeah.
Are you looking it up to see if they pay one?
I was letting,
Don't know.
I do not believe they pay a franchise fee.
Okay.
No,
so-
the solid waste, oh, Okaloosa Gas you're talking about.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's 6%.
Natural gas is at 6%?
Okay, here it is. They pay 6% of gross revenues, provided the maximum cost of gas from which the gas franchise fee is calculated shall not exceed 20% of the annualized cost of gas in the district's approved annual budget for the fiscal year.
So they do pay a franchise fee? So that's why we've entered into this, I suppose, because it doesn't appear, since there's any other body that would supply this, that, all right, well, you might just ask them about the board of, yeah, that got to be quite contentious the first time we did this, and I wondered if they'd change their attitude. We'd love to participate.
I will do that.
Councilman
Probably get the
Bagby.
same answer. Okay, I'll vote for first reading.
I just want to make sure Ray knew it was 18, not 13, 2318.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks. Ready?
All right. Calling the vote. You got Jim. Jim, confirm? All right, there we go. Ayes have it, so moved. All right, thank you, Kim. All right, comments from the council members. Councilman Guile.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a couple things I want to bring up. Project status. Crosstown connector, no, I'm sorry, not Crosstown, One Harbor Boulevard. We're closing tomorrow, is that correct?
And everything is in order and progressing, and Crystal has the money flowing, and the documents have been signed by the city manager, and they're in escrow with ASG Legal.
Thank you so much for all your help on that. Great job. Linear Park, DAG Engineering, waiting on Florida Power and Electric to provide feedback on the design. At this point, we're approximately 30% complete, is that correct?
Yes, and then we're taking it to committees for feedback and a public workshop.
If, Kyle, real quick, so did you guys have that second meeting with FP&L and Destin Water Users? We already had that
Yes.
meeting prior. So everything's good
Yes.
now?
We're getting there, yes.
All right.
Tarpon Beach, not Springs, Park. TDC is leading the engineering design. From what I'm understanding, we're about 60% design completion present, right? We're still holding out for TDC. That's what we're waiting on?
I need to get an answer back to the county. They sent a question last week on the design, so I'm waiting on one more piece of information before I can fully respond. But that we should get a complete set of plans from them shortly after that.
All right. Sir.
Can I ask a question on that since you brought it up?
Please, that's the whole reason I have this project status.
Appreciate it. Unless I missed a meeting, I do recall maybe one time seeing some designs coming to us for this park. And from my understanding, we're going to own the park. Am I missing something to have the opportunity for the city council to have more input and review and comments and direction on a park that we're about to own?
Ryan?
So 60% plans we're going to take to all the committees and do the normal process.
Say that again?
at 60% plans, when I get them from the county, we're going to take it through all the committees and get feedback and do the whole normal process.
So at that point, it'll go through our Parks and Rec committee. That's what you mean by all the committees? Good to know. It's great to hear. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir. I'm here for you. All right, harbor dredging, last meeting, we approved the engineering evaluation. Have we already got somebody working on that, or we submitted it out for RFP? Where are we at with that?
We just approved the contract, so we're getting the PO to issue them to start their work.
Okay, do we have an estimated start date?
I believe it was a couple weeks after we give them the notice to proceed.
Okay. The list on the city properties, I truly appreciate that. That was enlightening. It helped me understand quite a bit. Right now, pickleball court, from what I'm understanding, Scott Jenkins is updating the design and surveys are currently underway for the potential pickleball court right next door here. Is that correct?
Surveys have been completed as of a week and a half ago, I believe. So we're moving on to concept phase and design that we can start taking to the committees for feedback.
I'm going to interject real quick. And then we got that FERDAP grant in for the pickleball courts?
That is correct.
All right, good deal.
All right, I'm writing a note real quick, 2 committees. All right, Four Prong Lake, Stage 1 is approved. Michael Burgess is in process of scheduling the boring underground to help relieve some of that water. To help, we're currently looking at Stage 2, which is the permanent fix, and we're looking at state appropriations for assistance in this funding right now. If the state does not allow this, do we have recommendations for alternative funding?
Yeah, and that'll be in the interlocal agreement.
In the interlocal agreement. All right. Crystal Beach Park, we already ordered an appraisal to see if it's feasible. Do we expect to have this discussion presented to council anytime soon? The appraisal, where are we at? You said that you've already ordered the appraisal came in?
The appraisal did not come in, but I followed up with the appraiser again today. He said he's finishing it tonight. It should be done tomorrow. So after we have that appraisal, we'll reach back out to the property owner. And then if he's being reasonable, we will discuss it with you at one of the next meeting or two.
Then we'll
Sometime
buy
in
all the
November.
property.
I don't want to get ahead of myself and assume there will be 2 meetings in November, so we'll see.
All right. Well, I think that gives the public an update so far on the majority of the projects we have underway. I realize there's quite a bit more, but if there's something anybody wants me to add to this to keep going weekly, please just let me know. All right, keep meeting, yeah, let me know, and I'll add it here. Citizens email me, please.
All right, Councilman Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. About 3 or 4 months ago, I think the council made a motion to direct staff, city manager, to come back with a cost estimate on a 4-way stop at the intersection of Kelly and Spring Lake, and also to look down at the intersection that goes to the ballpark down at the other end. Can you give me a status on where we are on that?
It's between Michael and Ryan. Somebody.
Yeah, the update on that, Councilor Destin, we've conducted 2 speed studies on Kelly Street, one at Spring Lake and the other one at Fleshman. We had the speed detector out there for about 4 days just to see if it met warrants, to see what the speed conditions were out there. Neither one of the speed studies revealed a warrant for any kind of traffic calming devices or any other measures. I believe the 85th percentile on both was probably about 6 miles over the posted speed limit, with the threshold for any kind of traffic calming devices being 11 miles over.
You consider a 4-way stop sign a traffic calming device?
Actually, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices discourages the use of 4-way stops as a traffic calming device.
Okay, and back to the motion that we made. The motion was to bring us back a cost estimate to do it. Have you done that?
No, sir, but I can have that prepared tomorrow and get it to the city manager for distribution.
And bring it back to next meeting, please. And if the council has changed their mind, then we will give you a different direction.
Will do.
Thanks. That's all, Mayor.
Councilman Bagby.
Yeah, tomorrow, Michael and a few of us are going to go out to the west end of James Lee Park and Barracuda Beach Access and they're going to show me where the ECL actually exists. And so then we'll figure out, if it's, I believe the sheriff enforces 20 feet. And if it's 25, then that's fine. But if it's 80, then we'll probably have something to discuss on the next agenda or the next meeting about enforcement and the ECL. The bottom line is we ought to follow the law, and the law is wherever the ECL is, seaward of that is public beach, period. And I'm not trying to take anybody's beach. I'm not trying to give anybody any beach. I'm just trying to see where they're legally, where their beach is, not where some 20-year-old survey before the beach nourishment project says it is, or where their surveyor said it was last month, or where they think it is. We know where it is. It is a fixed, firm location, and we will see those too. And based on this last discussion, Michael, we might go to the property that is in between the two that we currently own and see where the public beach is there, because that might make them understand that they don't own near as much of that beach as they think they do, and it might affect the value of their property. But I will report back to you, or the staff will report back to you at the next meeting, how much beach is out there, at least on those two monuments.
I hope you got enough security for you. Councilwoman Haber.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to add a special city council meeting on November 27th, 2023. I know we only had one normally in November, but we have some items we need to have a second meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to add a special city council meeting November 27th, 2023.
Second.
Motion is second. Seems like unanimous. Seeing no further discussions, calling the vote. All right, add it to the list.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ayes have it.
The second thing that I have is the citizens that live on Main Street have been extremely thrilled with the two speed tables that were installed. The crossover that was, lights were set up there by the Main Street Park. The understanding for that was that it was also going to be a speed table. More specifically in that when the traffic is heading southbound from Indian to 98 on Main Street, there's an incline to where as they're coming over down into that pedestrian crosswalk, they don't see even those lights blinking until they're already on it. I was there as a runner on one side of the street, and there was a man with a wagon and a dog, and we sat there for 4 cars with the blinking lights, just coming over that second speed bump, hauling buggy, not even slowing down. So the request would be, and this is what the members on Main Street said, they would say, can you remove that one if you can only put 2 on Main Street and make the crosswalk a speed table? I don't know what the feasibility is. To talk to Joe, something about you have to look at it, check it, verify it or whatever. But I would like to know if y'all could verify, if you have to only get 2, they feel like it's safer for the crossing to be a speed table to help the customers or the residents cross the street, forcing the traffic to be slowed down. Okay, so that would be my only, if you could check on that, look into that, see what the feasibility, and just let me know. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, Councilman Schmidt.
I'm just asking him to look.
Thank you, sir. I first wanted to just commend and congratulate all the organizers of the Destin Seafood Festival this year. I think the Charter Boat Association is the official organizer of that, but I know our Parks and Rec department, probably our code department and others were also heavily impacted, if not involved, but probably impacted as well. So if you didn't have a chance to go this year, I would highly encourage anybody to go check it out. I think over the past handful of years between COVID and storms, it's been coming, they've changed a lot of it, kept a lot of it, and I think it's been an amazing time past couple of years, so good job to all those folks. I know we had another issue with lane closures going on the bridge recently, and so I went through the FDOT reports, and I think we get maybe weekly or every other week. I spoke with Sheriff's Department, spoke with staff, and there's a miscommunication somewhere because the reports that I read mentioned intermittent closures happening at nighttime, but none of the reports mentioned Highway 98 being closed in the daytime on the bridge. And so, Lance, if we could please maybe reach out to Chipley or whoever to kind of find out where the gap is.
And after you mentioned that
Sure.
the last time to me, I contacted Director Tim Smith at District 3. He's responded back to me, putting us in contact so that Tamara can be in direct contact with their PIO. So hopefully we can eliminate that.
Okay. I hope so too. I mean, I understand that safety is important and we have to shut down things sometimes, but in the middle of the day and things like that, there was no notice at all about that. And so I know it's their road or their bridge, but I'm just hoping we can fix it. The Tarpon Beach thing, Mr. Gile took care of that. I was expecting the Parks and Rec fee schedule tonight. Can I see it maybe at this new meeting, November 27th? Can we see it? We have a new meeting that we just added.
Yeah.
Can we add it to that meeting?
Well, I think we're planning on having it the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
The first, but for sure, the 27th.
Okay. So will it be ready then?
It will.
Okay. That is it, sir. Thank you so much.
Good deal. Awesome. The only thing I wanted to bring up is I had my terminology better in the spring for basically the beach chair vendors, and to the same point of the ECL line, trying to have some kind of business, some BTR, and having a very well-defined, laid-out beach chair BTR so that people know quite literally where the line in the sand is, and that they have some pre-warned information of where they shouldn't and should be. Just like the ECL line's kind of a sticky situation. The chairs for me have always been something I've been trying to get a grip on. So I know we do a February recap meeting before the season starts, and now that the season's kind of coming to a close, I think this would be a great time to do some housekeeping on trying to have some better communication with both the good and bad apples that are doing beach chair business in the Destin. So that's something I'm really hoping to see for next year, is a little bit more communication and ability to control the beach chair vendors. I know we got staff, new code going to be coming online, so we'll have the manpower, and I'm hoping we can get some legislation in place or some process in place to help them enforce I guess, more clean beach vendor application and what is and isn't allowed. For me, mainly it's the ghost chairs, and potentially also just where on the beach they should set up per parcel that they're operating out of. So you can put it under my name, but that's just something I'm going to start talking about here, getting into the November timeframe with everyone. And that's all I have. City Attorney. Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilmember
Bagby, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I would make it sooner than that, Mayor, having run this process a few years over in Walton County. Usually it's September, you have a meeting, let citizens come complain about the beach chairs folks, let the beach chairs come complain about the city staff or code enforcement or whatever. You take that information, then you feed it back in as a feedback loop, and then we do the legislation in December so that it's in place so that by March, everybody knows what the rules are for the season. What you don't want to do, which happened to us one year for reasons that aren't important here, is you're trying to make the rules in March. And it's like, dude, I've already done all my advertising, I've already trained all my folks, and now you're telling me new rules for this year. So this kind of goes to Kevin's earlier point that it's part of a process, and where it is on that calendar needs to be important when we know about it and what actions we're supposed to be taking. We should be taking actions in at our December meeting if we want to change the beach ordinance or activities ordinance or whatever, the rules on these folks that are doing business here.
All right, Councilwoman Aber?
If you want, I can make it part of a motion that I can make in the November 27th meeting.
Yeah.
And I'll work with the city attorney and have her help me put it in as an item for us to approve, maybe set it up to get the citizens and the beach vendors together.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've kind of had the beach vendor talk already earlier this year. So I'm sure we know where their sentiment is, and we have all their notes and minutes from that meeting. Obviously, the citizens side is something we could probably predict, but we should have it for formal reasons. So we can hopefully have a quicker end of year process for Q4 and have this ready by Q1 of next year. That's something, to your point, yeah, I would love to have this up and ready before the season's go time. All right. Kim?
I don't have anything, thank you.
All right, thank you. Public comments? Nothing. Just here for the entertainment of it all. All right, I will close this meeting, 8:15.